I decided to grow the biggest pumpkin in Canada with these seeds that can turn into 500-pound pumpkins. I even 3D printed molds and put them on my pumpkins to grow giant pumpkin shapes. Then I took the orange and white pumpkins I grew into the kitchen to cook up some tasty treats. Well, it's been 2 years since I started this journey, and I guess it all started with this pumpkin right here. So if you're wanting to grow your own pumpkin patch just in time for
Halloween,
now is the time, and I'm gonna teach you how while telling you this story in between. First, you'll take your pumpkin, cut it in half, reveal the inner juicy raw pumpkin seeds, remove them from your pumpkin. You'll want to get them in a cup and soak them in water overnight. Just make sure to cover them with a little towel, and this will help loosen that outer shell that encapsulates the seeds. By the morning, you'll strain your seeds, and then you'll grab the seeds and peel off that outer layer of shell off about 5 or 10 of them. Remember, 1 is all you need, but the more the merrier, so you give yourself options just in case some of them fail. Then you'll place those on a piece of paper towel, spritz the paper towel so it's damp, and then seal the seeds in a bag and tape them on the window. You can keep them in a dark place, but I like to keep my germinating seeds taped on the window so they get lots of sun and they germinate more quickly. You may have to spritz the paper towel more often than if you're keeping them in a dry place, but then all you gotta do is wait. In about 3 to 5 days, you should be ready to open your paper towel to see the little tails shooting out of the bottom. But as I waited, I learned that pumpkins were originally referred to as the Pepon by French explorers. That just means large melons. And it wasn't until the Cinderella book was published in the 1600s that the name was changed from Pepon to pumpkin, so thank you, Cinderella. Anywho, once your tails start shooting out from the little bumps, that's how you know they're ready for soil. If you have a garden box, that's my preferred method of growing pumpkins, but if you don't, then try and get your hands on a big, deep, vertical pot, and then you should be just fine. Pumpkins are really hardy and very resilient, so you shouldn't have a problem. But once you choose your soil bed of choice, you'll place your seeds tail down in your garden box, cover it up, water it nicely, and wait for your growth. In just 3 to 4 weeks, it'll grow really big, and soon you'll even start to see yellow and orange flowers growing, which is a really good sign because it means that your pumpkins will start growing after these yellow flowers sprout. But it doesn't automatically mean your pumpkins will have a 100% success rate at growing because the flowers need to be pollinated. You see, some flowers are male and some are female, and in order for the pumpkin babies to grow successfully, the pollen from the male flowers needs to be transferred over to the female flowers, and that can be done by hand with a makeup brush, but usually nature will do its thing, and the pollinators like bees and butterflies will come poke their heads in the male flowers and bring the pollen to the female flowers, and they'll complete this pollen transfer for you naturally, and that's the only way that your pumpkins will sprout. And these things were doing amazing. You've got to know though that during this time, I actually had to plant these at my dad's house and leave them growing there, and I didn't come back for 2 whole months. But when I did come back, I came back to this sweet surprise right here because the pumpkins were really growing. And since I was growing these all at my dad's house because at that point in time my garden was just too small to house pumpkins, you already know I took a cutting to grow a smaller plant at home, and it grew roots and then grew into a little plant. So just so you know, if you're ever around a pumpkin patch and have permission to take a cutting, it'll grow really fast, and you can have pumpkins in about 7 to 10 weeks from planting that cutting. But of course, I kept going back to my dad's house to check on these pumpkins religiously, and I gave it a little haircut here and there when needed because it was an enormous plant. And soon my pumpkins were here in full force. I was so excited. Normally, pumpkins take between 90 and 180 days to mature, and scientifically they're actually classified as a fruit. All seeds have fruits, or all fruits have seeds, you know. But during this time, as I grew these pumpkins, I found out about the fact that there are more than 48 varieties of pumpkins grown commercially worldwide, one of them being these crazy white pumpkins. I had never seen them before, so it made me wonder what the difference was between white and orange pumpkins. But I learned that the white ones are a special variety of pumpkin because even though they don't have that distinctive orange color that we're all used to seeing, from all the research I did, it doesn't look like there's actually much of a difference other than the color, which means there are different seeds inside of the pumpkin. These things are actually called ghost pumpkins, very fitting for
Halloween.
And the seeds are edible if you bake them, but of course, if you know anything about this channel, we didn't bake them, we grew them into a pumpkin patch. patch, at least we attempted to. And it's pretty easy to grow them. You just have to remove some of the seeds, wash them off with water, and then remove that outer layer of shell off of the seeds so that they're naked and ready to germinate. Now remember, you can also soak them in water overnight to loosen that shell, but you don't need to. And then here's where you can actually use a knife to remove the tip of the seed, which made it a lot easier to peel that outer layer of shell. But then you'll get them on a piece of damp paper towel, seal those up airtight, and here we also planted some in soil to give us more options. But then you wait for the tails to sprout and your pumpkin patch to grow. Well, at least I thought a pumpkin patch would grow based on how easy and successful our first round of growing orange pumpkins was, but unbeknownst to me, something weird happened here and the seeds took so many weeks to germinate and grow baby tails, but when they did, I planted them in soil, and the seed that we planted in soil was doing very well. This was the progress, and at first they were growing nicely. They even started to grow yellow flowers, but then they didn't survive. So either it was the weather, with it being the end of September and possibly too late to start growing pumpkins in the season, or the size of the pot being too small, restricting the pumpkins to grow altogether. I even tried repotting it, but that just made things worse. However, I guess the only thing we'll ever know about growing white pumpkins is that it's all trial and but you already know that by now. And if you know me, then you also know that I wasn't happy with these results. So I did what I do best. I got packaged seeds, but not just regular packaged seeds, okay? These are supposed to grow into 500-pound pumpkins, and since we weren't successful growing the white ones, I figured growing a pumpkin triple my own size would tickle my fancy and do the trick. And listen, if the heaviest pumpkin in the world recorded weighed 3,624 pounds, then we could easily reach a measly 500-pound pumpkin. So you already know I got to work, got the seeds right in my garden box, watered them religiously, and patiently waited, and finally, after 8 weeks, we had a nicely sized pumpkin plants with lots of male and female flowers growing and lots of pollinators transferring pollen from male flowers to female flowers so our pumpkin children could be birthed. I was so excited I even 3D printed myself these shapes to put over the pumpkin so that we could grow a pumpkin Pikachu, and the waiting game was, well, pristine. I was really excited about this pumpkin right here, and I even also had these watermelon plants growing beside my pumpkins, and I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see if I could cross-pollinate them and grow a watermelon pumpkin hybrid, and I learned along the way that it would likely not result in a hybrid fruit that combines the characteristics of both plants because they come from different families of fruits, so the difference in genetic structures and reproductive mechanisms would likely not yield any warped fruit. But hey, we won't know until we try, so we tried, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it did not work. However, I feel like it would work under better conditions because my pumpkins never fully grew at all, and I genuinely don't know what happened this time around. But failure after failure, I just kept on waking up to these darn things literally exploding on me, and then it was time to go check on the 3D printed Pikachu pumpkin, and this is what happened. I mean, why? But listen, it's all proof in the pumpkins that plants are all trial and because we still did have some growing nicely and others that kind of just fell off the plants altogether. So the only thing left to do was taking the little tiny pumpkins that fell off before growing big enough and trying to do something with them. I figured let's decide to pickle them because you already know we can't throw those out. Listen, every single part of a pumpkin is edible, including the skin, the leaves, the flowers, pulp, seeds, stems, plus they're made up of 90% water and they contain more fiber and kale and more potassium than bananas. So it's okay to pickle them because it's healthy, okay? But since it sounds kind of gross, let's be weird and try this because I do feel like it'll taste good in a weird way. Listen, humans have been eating pumpkins since 7,000 BC, so there's no way no one has ever tried this before. Well, I got them in a jar and then added a mixture of vinegar, water, sugar, salt, spices, garlic, and I put them in the fridge. I really don't know when to try them, but not only am I waiting to try these, but I'm also waiting to see if we grow a 500-pound pumpkin, and although our pumpkins have not grown into this size yet, I do believe they will soon. I'm also hoping that I get the seeds of this variety soon. It's a Warty Goblin pumpkin, also known as Knucklehead pumpkins, and they're bred for their bumpy skin, and now they're trending for decorating for Halloween. So I'm actually looking for these seeds. If you know where I can get them, let me know. But by the way, just so you know, if you leave a pack of pumpkin seeds outside and it rains, a week later you'll go outside to see the seeds inside of your package sprouting, and then you can plant them to grow a pumpkin patch. So, my friends, that is the 2-year journey of our attempts at growing pumpkins. Some successful and some complete failures, but you'll never know if you can do it at all unless you try. It all started with one pumpkin that turned into a pumpkin patch, a white pumpkin, 500-pound pumpkin seeds, Warty Goblin pumpkins, 3D printed pumpkin objects, and some pumpkin pickles. The fact that we actually grew a pumpkin patch successfully on the very first try was just incredible. I love nature and all the gifts it gives to us. So if this video didn't convince you to go grow your own pumpkin patch right now before Halloween so you can gift all your neighbors all pumpkins, then at least don't forget to like, comment, follow, subscribe, and know that on this channel we take the seeds from inside exotic fruits and grow them into full-blown houseplants that fruit. Thank you so much for watching my channel this week. I cannot wait for Halloween, so comment below if you're growing pumpkins too. All I gotta say is life is gourd. Always remember that
I love you.
And I'll see you next week.